Hello, everyone. This is Adam with PsychedelicInvest.com. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. In today's episode, it's going to be a bullish versus bearish about MindMed. So I know there's a lot that has been going on revolving MindMed, Jake Freeman, and all that stuff. But for this episode specifically, I'm just going to look at their earnings report and judge based off of that. So let's jump right into things. This should be an interesting one. All right, so to get things kicking off here, we have MindMed initiated phase 2B dose optimization trial in patients with generalized anxiety disorder. The first patients dosed in Q3 2022 and key clinical readout expected in late 2023. All right, phenomenal. It looks like their trials are chugging along. We have the advanced IND enabling studies for MM-402 and initiated phase 1 investigator initiated trial in Q3 2022. Sounds great. Cash and cash equivalents. I think this is the most important one for you guys. Of $154.5 million expected to fund current operating plan into first half of 2022. So it looks like their cash runway as it stands right now is pretty much neck and neck with where Atai is at. Atai, I think, had until 2025 as well. If anything, MindMed should be slightly shorter, but not by much. So in like, with all things considered, in terms of the dilution that they just had, having 154.5 million in the bank that can last them until 2025 is extremely significant for these pre-revenue early stage biotech companies. So I understand where people think the valuation at which they did the dilution at wasn't phenomenal, but the reality is it added to their cash runway, and if this is the result, it's not all bad. Having a cash runway well into the first half of 2025 is very good, and you know what? That's fine with me. I'd like to see them. I'd like to see just how fast this runway kind of gets depleted over time. That'll be an interesting thing to watch for. So I just want to add another thing, guys. This is just more speculation on my part. So with MindMed's cash runway, their significant amount of cash, I could really foresee some type of acquisition or a merger on the horizon for MindMed. So a merger or acquisition would bolster their pipeline, really diversify it. It will add to it in general. It could be more psychedelic drugs. It could be some nice non-psychedelic drugs as well, depending on who they merge or acquire. But I do see MindMed as being a prime candidate for that. They have the retail shareholders in spades. Their reputation right now is not that great, but that's why I believe a merger and acquisition can really help the company. Because when let's say they merge with another company, I think like a good example would be Cybin. If they merge or they acquired Cybin or something like that, then you'd have almost like you'd have either a mixing of the managements or you'd have some management being replaced. I'm not saying anybody needs to be replaced or anything like that. I'm just speculating. But this can really help to bring investor confidence back. So we can hypothetically speculate here, like let's say MindMed and Cybin decide to merge. They would get all of the programs that Cybin currently has going, which would be like CYB003, CYB004. There's deuterated psilocybin and there's deuterated DMT. Both drugs that MindMed currently doesn't have in their pipeline. So I think that would be pretty huge for them. And in general, Cybin's valuation right now seems pretty enticing. So that's just my speculation here. I think that in general, this would be a huge catalyst for MindMed if there was some type of M&A on the horizon, and it ended up being a company like possibly Cybin, maybe. I'm going to throw some companies out there. Cybin, Awaken Life Sciences, something like that. But my feeling is just based on optics, Cybin would be one of the best ones. Cybin has a very experienced upper management team. Doug Drysdale is great. And I think that would be that would be an interesting type of consolidation within the psychedelic there if we saw that. So that's like my only like point of speculation really within this bullish versus bearish is that there could be, let's say there is some type of M&A on the side of MindMed, and it does happen to be a company, let's say like Cybin, that could be a huge catalyst for MindMed, and that could really help just change sentiment completely in regards to what we're seeing now. So yeah, that's I just wanted to sprinkle this in for you guys. This was something I've been thinking about for a little while now. I might have mentioned it in my last MindMed video as well. But yeah, I do believe that MindMed is primed for that, and it would be interesting to see if there's any type of acquisition or merger on the horizon. And I would definitely keep an eye out for that as investors, because that would be one of the quickest ways for MindMed to really catch up to its competitors like Atai, Compass, stuff like that. All right, so another thing to highlight here is the net losses. So it seems like the net losses between September 30th, 2022 compared with the same time in 2021, it looks like they managed to bring them down a little bit. And especially on the yearly, it went from it was 76.2 million in 2021 to 51.9 million in the same period in 2022. So that's good. I like to see that. I'd like to see them bringing their losses down a bit, and once again to maintain that cash runway that they have, and just to be just fiscally responsible in general towards making their money or their cash runway last the longest. This is very investor friendly, and at the end of the day, once they get into the further parts of the trials, phase 2s and phase 3s, it's going to get very expensive. So having this cash on hand is phenomenal. And once again, it's good to see a company bring their net losses down from the previous quarter. So hopefully they can either maintain where they're at right now or even bring them down even further. That would be phenomenal. And now we could jump into some of the development program updates. So we have MM-120 LSD tartrate salt, a proprietary pharmaceutically optimized form of lysergic acid that is primarily being developed for the treatment of generalized anxiety disorder. In August 2022, the company initiated patient dosing in the first 2B dose optimization study of MM-120 for the treatment of GAD. Patient enrollment is currently ongoing, and top-line results are expected in the late half of 2023. That's very good. It seems like, in general, 2023 is going to be a big year for a lot of psychedelic companies, specifically MindMed. In September 2022, results from a phase 2B placebo-controlled investigator-initiated clinical trial of LSD in the treatment of anxiety disorders, LSD Assist Study, were published in the peer-reviewed scientific journal Biological Psychiatry. Top-line results in 46 patients with clinically significant anxiety demonstrated the significant, rapid, durable, beneficial effects of LSD and its potential to safely mitigate symptoms of anxiety and depression. So for a lot of you guys within the psychedelic communities, this is not a surprise for a lot of us. LSD is effective. It works. Has a pretty high safety profile. So let's just see how this evolves moving forward. We have enrollment is ongoing for the study MMED-007, a phase 2A proof of concept trial for the treatment of ADHD. The study is designed to assess the safety and efficacy of a repeated low-dose MM-120 administration. The company expects top-line results in the late half of 2023. Once again, 2023 being a big year for MindMed. So this is one of the studies that I am very much following and excited for. I have severe ADHD. Microdosing LSD has been a godsend for me since I learned about it many years ago. It basically allowed me to get off any type of stimulant-like medications that are typically prescribed for people with ADHD. So I think that there's a lot of potential with this study specifically. Obviously, I like that they're doing low dose, like microdoses, or it depends what their dose is in the study, but low dose generally. And we'll see how this pans out. Like, this is a very interesting study. And once again, cautiously optimistic about this study. I don't know if there's any other companies who are looking at LSD or psychedelics in general for ADHD. So I like the angle here. And lastly, we have the company continues to prioritize and focus its current development efforts and resources on MM-120 and psychiatric indications. MindMed currently owns and retains all clinical data and manufacturing rights for MM120 and is aggressively protecting and expanding its intellectual property portfolio. So it's funny that they threw that in there. Well, so in general, I'm happy that MindMed is continuing to develop. It's continuing its development efforts for MM-120. I think the last thing MindMed needs to do, and this is the only time I'm going to talk about this here, is come out with a flat denial of anyone having any access to their intellectual property. So once again, statements like MindMed currently owns and retains all clinical data and manufacturing rights for MM-120. So that statement right there, that does not do a good enough job of saying that no, Ceruvia or any other company does not have any rights to do anything with our with our intellectual property. So at the end of the day, once again, this is another thing that they're throwing in there, but it's not really addressing the specific question at hand. So that's my only critique of this. I'm still waiting for MindMed to come out and in a very binary way say, no, we never did, or we don't have any deal with any other company regarding freedom to operate with MM120, or we have no deals with any other company giving them any access to our intellectual property at any point for MM120. That's what I'd want to hear. So look, I'm happy they threw that in there. That's nice and all, but it's them still saying the same generic corporate speak. They're just using generic corporate speak to kind of say, hey, we retain our rights and blah, blah, blah. But once again, that doesn't mean that another company doesn't also have rights to that. So with that said, it's lovely that they're continuing to pursue MM120 and to look for, and once again, they're going to look at MM120 for other psychiatric indications. So at the end of the day, it's in my feeling, or based on what I know, LSD can be looked at for a number of indications, and it's nice to see MindMed doing the same. Like we're going to throw this at, let's say, chronic pain. We're going to throw it at cluster migraines or regular migraines, or we're going to throw it at ADHD. We're going to throw it at autism, for example, stuff like that. I think it's really interesting, and it's very efficient use of their intellectual property. So like to see all of this. It's been great. And up next, we have MM-402 or R MDMA. Basically, it's their form of MDMA. So MDMA that the company is developing for the treatment of core symptoms of autism spectrum disorder. IND-enabling studies are currently ongoing, and initiation of phase 1 clinical trial of MM-402 is planned in 2023. Really interesting. I had never looked into basically MDMA being looked at for people who are on the spectrum. I always, to me, in my experience, it's always been psychedelics that they looked at, but I'm not surprised that they would look at MDMA for it too, because of its empathogenic properties. So that's a really interesting indication. And once again, I think this is overlooked within some of the work MindMed is doing, and there is definitely potential here. So I'll have to keep an eye on this, because I wasn't following this that closely originally. What do they write here? A phase 1 pharmacokinetic investigating initial trial of MDMA in healthy volunteers is currently underway through the company's collaboration with the University Hospital Basel in Switzerland. Basel. I think it's Basel. But once again, MindMed, in spite of all the controversy around the company, they're chugging along. They're taking the necessary steps, I guess, to start to try and right or win investor sentiment back. So if I were to judge MindMed just simply based off this earnings report, and if we took all the drama, all the Freeman stuff out of MindMed and everything else out of it, I would say that MindMed has given a pretty good earnings report. Cash runway is great. The updates on their pipeline and their trials have been really nice. And just once again, it's piqued my interest now just through this that regarding their work with MDMA for people on the spectrum. So all in all, this was a pretty good earnings report for MindMed. It wasn't horrible at all. Very much in line with a lot of its competitors in the sector. Very good cash runway. Pipeline is just progressing. The only shadow that looms over MindMed's head is the question about exclusivity to their IP for MM-120, which once again they haven't gone out and completely denied that Ceruvia has there is a deal with Ceruvia. They just keep saying that they have access to they have licensing rights to manufacture and research MM-120, whatever, but it does not answer the $1 million question that we've been asking even since before the Robert Barrow interview. They have not been able to come out and acknowledge the Ceruvia stuff directly. So I'm going to wait for that before I really give any overwhelming support to MindMed just yet. But based on this earnings report, things are looking good. Cash on hand looks great. The cash on hand compared to their current valuation is a little wonky. So I feel like there are some deals to be had at these current prices, but just based on all the shitstorm that's been that MindMed's been caught up in, I would still be patient before jumping into anything MindMed related. So regardless of that, it looks like 2023 is going to be a big year for MindMed. So I'll give you guys my 2 ratings for MindMed. Without the Freeman stuff in the picture, this would have been like a decently bullish earnings report where they have the cash on hand, which looks good. They have the progression of the pipeline, progression of their trials and whatnot. Things are looking like an early stage bio company who's just doing taking the necessary steps to basically diversify their pipeline and just push their pipeline through the trials. With the Freeman stuff in the back of my mind here, though, in regards to the IP around MM-120, which is one of the, I guess, the main focuses of MindMed's whole crown jewel. It's basically MindMed's crown jewel in regards to intellectual property for what they're pushing through the trials right now. I would say that it would leave me more neutral until I find out exactly what's going on with the intellectual property around MM-120. But yeah, so that's basically the 2 sides of this coin. But I said that we would be kind of assessing this earnings report without just the earnings report for face value. So we'll try to keep any of the Freeman allegations out of it. This was a good earnings report. Everything's progressing. Cash on hand is great. They actually lowered their expenses, and the balance sheet looks good. So let's see how things keep progressing in regards to just MindMed in general and with a lot of the allegations surrounding around them. For this earnings report, I will give MindMed a very neutral / bullish stamp of approval. So the bullish comes in because this was a good earnings report compared to its peers, and things are just looking fine right now. The neutral part of it is because of the Freeman stuff going on and just wanting to get more clarity around MindMed's intellectual property. So we're going to do a neutral / bullish stamp of approval for MindMed in this earnings report. Things don't look extremely bad like some of the investors in the community seem to be catastrophizing over. The company is taking the necessary steps to push its drugs through the pipelines. It looks like they are also doing a good job of minimizing their net losses as well. So let's see what happens with the ongoing MindMed saga moving forward. But right now, based off this earnings report, everything looks great. And we'll see what happens as as we move forward into 2023. This is Adam Tabera with psychedelicinvest.com. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next week where we just keep running through these bullish versus bearish episodes. I think next week we're going to have Compass. We'll have a tie. Just did a tie. We'll have Cybin. So stay tuned for those guys. And yeah, have a great weekend.